The rated ampacity for a number 4 American wire gauge stranded wire depends on several factors, including the insulation type, the ambient temperature, and the installation method. However, for a typical application, we can provide a general guideline. It's important to consult the National Electrical Code, or NEC, and local electrical codes for specific requirements in your area. The NEC provides tables that specify the allowable ampacities of conductors based on these factors. A common insulation type is THHN, which has a higher temperature rating than some other types. For a number 4 American wire gauge copper wire with THHN insulation, the ampacity is typically around 70 amps in accordance with NEC table 310.16, assuming an ambient temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, which is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. This table provides ampacities for conductors in conduit, cable, or direct burial applications. However, if the wire is used in a different environment or if there are multiple current-carrying conductors bundled together, dating factors may apply. Dating factors are adjustments to the ampacity to account for conditions that can increase the wire temperature, such as high ambient temperatures or multiple conductors in a raceway. These factors reduce the allowable ampacity to prevent overheating and potential fire hazards. For example, if the ambient temperature is higher than 30 degrees Celsius, a temperature correction factor must be applied. Similarly, if there are more than 3 current-carrying conductors in a raceway or cable, adjustment factors must be applied as per NEC table 310.15. These adjustment factors reduce the allowable ampacity of each conductor. The length of the wire run, in this case 25 inches, is relatively short and typically does not significantly impact the ampacity rating. Ampacity tables in the NEC are generally based on assumptions about heat dissipation over longer runs. However, in very specific scenarios, such as extremely short runs where heat dissipation might be more concentrated, it's still important to adhere to the NEC guidelines and ensure that the wire is appropriately sized for the intended load. Also, it's critical to consider the termination temperature rating of the equipment to which the wire will be connected. Equipment is often rated for 60 degrees Celsius, 75 degrees Celsius, or 90 degrees Celsius terminations. The wire must be sized based on the lowest temperature rating of any termination point. For instance, if the equipment is rated for 75 degrees Celsius terminations, the ampacity of the number 4 American wire gauge wire must be based on the 75 degrees Celsius column in the NEC ampacity tables, even if the wire insulation is rated for 90 degrees Celsius. For a number 4 American wire gauge copper wire with THHN insulation in a typical installation with an ambient temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, the ampacity is generally 70 amps, according to NEC table 310.16. If you are using aluminum or copper-clad aluminum wire instead of copper, the ampacity will be different and you should consult the appropriate table in the NEC. The type of enclosure or raceway also affects the ampacity. Wires and conduit, such as rigid metal conduit, electrical metallic tubing, or PVC conduit, have different ampacities compared to open-air installations. The NEC provides specific guidelines for each type of wiring method. For example, if the number 4 American wire gauge wire is installed in a conduit buried underground, the ampacity will be different than if it is installed in a conduit on the surface. Furthermore, continuous load conditions must be taken into account. If the load is considered continuous, meaning it operates for 3 hours or more at a time, the NEC requires that the overcurrent protection device be rated at not less than 125% of the continuous load. This effectively directs the allowable ampacity of the wire for continuous use. For instance, if the continuous load is 56 amps, the overcurrent protection device should be rated at least 70 amps, which is 56 amps multiplied by 1.25. In this case, you would need to ensure that the number 4 American wire gauge wire is suitable for the adjusted ampacity. In summary, the ampacity of a number 4 American wire gauge stranded wire for a 25-inch run is primarily determined by the wire's insulation type, the ambient temperature, the presence of other current-carrying conductors, and the termination temperature rating of the equipment. While the 25-inch length is not a significant factor in most cases, all other relevant factors must be considered to ensure safe and compliant installation. Always refer to the latest edition of the NEC and local electrical codes for precise requirements, and consult with a qualified electrician if you have any doubts. Understanding and applying these principles ensures electrical safety and compliance with regulatory standards. Electrical installation should always adhere to the NEC and local codes, with proper overcurrent protection.